The story begins in a classroom during the seat-changing event, something most students find exciting. However, a dark-haired boy feels like a loner and thinks that this kind of fun is only for extroverts. He watches other students making plans to hang out and believes his day will be as boring as always. Suddenly, the girl sitting next to him seems to respond to him. With a smile, she says it's no problem and offers to pay for him. The girl, with a calm expression, extends her hand and says they will go together. Because of the seat change, a secret relationship began between the lonely boy and a group of very popular girls. Let's go back to the beginning. The boy, Ryota Izumiya, is sitting at his desk near the window reading a book. He really likes his spot. It's the perfect place for him to read his light novels quietly and alone. Nearby, the extroverted students are having fun, being loud as always. Ryota thinks that if he had to hang out with people like that, he would much rather remain a solitary introvert. With a satisfied smile, he concludes that his seat is the best one in the whole classroom. Ryota feels very content in his seat, protected by 2 or 3 rows of classmates. For him, that corner of the room is simply perfect, a truly divine place. He tells himself that he needs to savor every second of that peace. Suddenly, the peace is shattered when a girl at the front of the room grabs everyone's attention. She announces that they will be changing seats today. Ryota reacts with a cry of pure shock and despair. Meanwhile, 2 girls chat excitedly, saying that this is the first seat change of the year. One of them mentions that she heard it was the class rep, Kuroki, who asked the teacher to make the change. Ryota fumes internally, blaming Kuroki for ruining his perfect seat. For someone like him, a loner, the seat change is a high-risk, zero-reward situation. Kuroki then announces that the new seating chart is on the board and invites everyone to take a look. One girl celebrates happily because she'll be sitting next to a boy named Suzuki. Ryota, in the middle of the crowd, tries to find his own place on the chart. He looks at the board in disbelief, unable to believe what his eyes are seeing. His name, Izumiya, stands out on the classroom diagram. To his complete despair, he realizes that his new seat is right in the center of the classroom. Ryota falls into total panic. He feels that his peaceful, quiet school life is completely over. But then, he tries to calm down and think for a second. He holds onto a tiny hope that maybe he is surrounded by other introverted classmates. Ryota looks closer at the seating chart. He sees that his seat, Izumiya, is surrounded by very specific names. To his right is Kuroki, to his left Ichinose, and right in front of him, Miyama. He freezes in pure horror, letting out an internal scream of despair. Some students glance at the seating chart and comment on a specific spot. They say it's a very lucky place. Meanwhile, Ryota walks to his new desk, unable to understand why someone like him, an introvert, ended up in that position. In complete despair, he laments that of all people, it had to be him sitting there. Ryota is in full panic, realizing he is surrounded by 3 beautiful and extremely popular girls. No matter how he looks at the situation, for him, this is the worst possible seat. Meanwhile, other boys in the class comment jealously, saying they would love to be in his place to get close to the 3 girls. He admits to himself that they are, without a doubt, the center of the class, the top of the social hierarchy.
All he wanted was to sit quietly in a corner and enjoy his light novels in peace. He thinks this situation is nothing less than hell and notices that he has never seen the girl sitting next to him before. And then, in that moment, Ryota comes face to face with the girl right in front of him. She is Airi Miyama, the very embodiment of cuteness, and he finds her extremely crafty. He panics, wondering why on earth someone like her is sitting there. Nearby, another girl compliments Miyama's nails, saying they look beautiful and asking in amazement if she did them herself. The girl next to Ryota, Yuria Ichinose, responds to the compliment with indifference. She says she didn't do anything special, but thanks them anyway, seeming like a quieter and more reserved Gyaru. Ryota watches her, thinking to himself about his preferences. He admits that he likes curvy bodies, but in real life, Gyaru-style girls intimidate him a little. He's afraid they might get the wrong idea about him, especially since he can't seem to look away. A girl comments to her friend that their new seats ended up close together. Airi Miyama agrees and asks if it was Rui-chan who arranged everything so they could sit near each other. Airi Miyama, still seated, also calls out to Rui-chan. At that moment, Ryota is shocked as he realizes that Rui Kuroki is the mastermind behind this entire seat change. Then, with a mysterious smile, Rui turns to him and greets him, saying it's been a long time since they last saw each other. The girl is the class representative, Rui Kuroki, and she greets Ryota with a smile. She says that it looks like they'll be neighbors starting today and that it's a pleasure to meet him. Though he internally blames her for this terrible situation, Ryota manages to stammer out a greeting in return. Next to them, Airi Miyama looks a bit confused by the scene, while another girl warns that the teacher is arriving. The teacher, standing at the front of the room, announces that the seat change is complete, but he quickly warns the students not to get too excited about it. He explains that he only allowed the change this time because the class representative, Kuroki, insisted so much. The teacher then says that in his opinion, seat changes are pointless and that he doesn't plan to allow another one. Ryota is shocked to hear this. The teacher ends the class and Ryota falls into full panic. He can't believe he'll be stuck in this seat until the end of the second year. Meanwhile, one of Rui's friends asks if she knows that boy. Rui confirms with a smile, revealing that they were in the same class back in elementary school. Ryota, unaware of this, wonders if Kuroki even remembers him and tries to calm himself by reading his light novel. Airi Miyama, the girl sitting in front, turns around with a shocked expression. She exclaims loudly that the book Ryota is reading is an inappropriate picture book. Ryota, completely embarrassed, stammers for her to shut up. He then notices the girl next to him, Yuria Ichinose, staring at him silently. Panicking, Ryota thinks to himself that she's totally judging him for the situation. To divert attention from Ryota, Yuria Ichinose turns and changes the subject. She says she's going out to buy sushi today and asks what the other two will do. Ryota feels incredibly relieved, thinking the teasing has finally ended and mentally thanks Ichinose. Rui responds with a smile, saying she's free since track practice was cancelled, and then turns to ask Airi. Airi, however, seems to get nervous and stammers, unable to give a clear answer, and then falls silent. Airi Miyama, with a cute smile, apologizes and says she won't be able to go today. She explains that her boyfriend invited her to Starbucks after class. The other girls understand and say it's fine. Ryota, who was listening to the conversation, processes the information that she has a boyfriend.
He sees Airi with a happy expression, finding the situation enviable, but he quickly concludes that her love life has nothing to do with someone like him. Ryota sighs as he walks home after school, thinking about how exhausting the day was. The jealous stares from the other boys were hard to endure. However, he reminds himself that he has his own world, the beloved world of manga and light novels. His mood suddenly improves because today is the release day of that light novel he has been dying to get. Ryota arrives at the bookstore, but is immediately met with a discouraging sign. The book he wanted, with its very long and specific title, is completely sold out. A store employee confirms the bad news, apologizing profusely and explaining that the item is no longer in stock. He is shocked to realize he won't be able to buy the book. Looking at a poster of his favorite web novel, he accepts it, thinking there's nothing he can do since it's such a popular title. Not giving up,
Ryota decides to try calling another nearby bookstore to see if they have the book. He makes the call and, a bit embarrassed, asks the employee if they have in stock the light novel with the long, awkward title. To his surprise, the voice on the other end, which sounds very cheerful, confirms that they do have the book. Ryota finds the employee's voice strangely familiar and of surprisingly high quality. He wonders if he's just imagining things. The employee on the phone confirms they have 4 copies of the book he's looking for. Very happy with the news, he celebrates and says he's heading to the store right away. On the way, he finds it odd that the call lasted so long and wonders if the young-sounding voice belongs to a new staff member. When he arrives at the bookstore, he approaches the girl at the counter. He introduces himself as the person who called earlier, and she turns, recognizing the book request. However, when she turns and sees who the customer is, she stops speaking. It's Irie Miyama, his classmate. Ryota reacts with total surprise. On the other side, Irie is also completely shocked and embarrassed. She recognizes the customer as the boy who sits right behind her in class. At the same time, Ryota is stunned to realize that the popular Irie Miyama is working a part-time job at the bookstore. Ryota and Irie freeze, both shocked by the unexpected encounter. Not knowing what to do, Ryota decides that the best thing is simply to leave. He thinks to himself that he'll just pretend he didn't see anything. But as he starts to turn away, she stops him. Irie, with her face very close to his and an expression of desperation, asks if he plans to tell everyone that she has a part-time job. Ryota is completely shocked by her question. She quickly defends herself, explaining that she got the school's permission to work and that her job is within the allowed rules. With tears beginning to well up in her eyes, she stares at him. Then she pleads with him to not tell anyone her secret. Suddenly, another employee with short hair appears and says that's enough. She scolds them, saying that couple fights aren't allowed during working hours because it's against the rules. Irie is left in shock, and Ryota thinks to himself that he should at least correct her since he's not Irie's boyfriend. The manager then tells Miyama-chan to go take a break in the staff room for now. Still upset, Irie agrees, and the manager adds with a smile that her boyfriend can go along too. Ryota and Irie are sitting side by side in the staff room, in a very awkward silence. Irie, who is still a little upset, finally breaks the silence, apologizing and saying it was her fault. Ryota, a bit awkward, replies that no, he's sorry too for the confusion. Irie, with her face full of tears, is sitting very close to Ryota.
He panics at how close she is, thinking that she's way too close for him to handle. Trying to explain himself, he says that a loner like him simply can't deal with the situation of being so close to a girl. He continues, saying that because of his nervous reaction, Irie ended up getting scared all of a sudden. Irie then explains the reason for her fear. She says she was afraid of being called poor again, just like it happened in the past. Ryota looks confused by her words. He asks her what she means by that. Irie then decides to reveal the truth. She confesses that, in reality, her family is very poor. She tells him that her father passed away when she was little, and her mother raised her completely on her own. Irie continues her story, explaining to Ryota that she never received an allowance. She says that because of this, there were many moments that were really hard for her. Ryota listens carefully, realizing that her life has been much harder than he imagined. She then recalls her elementary school days. When her friends started using makeup, Irie was the only one who couldn't keep up with the trends. That made her feel very left out and unhappy. Irie goes on, explaining what she did to change her situation. She says she worked hard to save money. She also studied fashion and makeup with great dedication so she could keep up with her friends. With a proud smile, she shows how all her efforts paid off. Finally, she was able to become the cute version of herself that she is today. Irie explains that to maintain this cute version of herself, she had to face the reality that it costs money. Ryota then understands and asks if that's why she got a job, and Eri confirms. He thinks that having a part-time job doesn't automatically mean someone is poor. Eri then declares with newfound confidence that she doesn't care anymore if people call her poor. She says that, in any case, she's already used to being called that by others. Eri continues explaining her biggest concern. She says she absolutely doesn't want her friends, Yuria and Ru, who became her friends in their first year, to find out about her situation. She emphasizes that she doesn't want them to know her secret under any circumstances. With her face very close to his, she looks at him with a pleading expression. He tells her, with his serious look, that honestly, he really respects her, Miyama. Eri is left speechless, just staring at him in confusion. Ryota then reflects on himself, admitting that he has never bought anything with money he earned himself. He concludes that, compared to him, she is much more mature. Ryota continues his statement, looking forward seriously. He explains that this is exactly why he could never look down on someone like her, Miyama. He assures her that he absolutely wouldn't do such a thing. However, right after saying that, he turns away in a panic, unable to believe what he just said. Eri remains completely silent, surprised and unable to react to his unexpected words. After hearing Ryota's sincere and unexpected words, Eri's expression changes completely. With a gentle smile and a blushing face, she tells him not to worry about her reaction. She then surprises him by saying that actually, he's a very sweet person. Eri lets out a small laugh, which leaves Ryota completely red-faced and speechless. She says that anyway she needs to get back to work, then she turns to him cheerfully and reminds him that he came there to buy a book. To his despair, Ryota goes over to the book section and sees that the book he wanted so badly, his Oppai Sui, is completely sold out. He lets out a sigh of defeat, knowing his chance to buy the book is gone. Suddenly, Eri approaches and whispers in his ear, playfully asking if he found what he was looking for. Completely embarrassed, Ryota shouts that no, the book was sold out. Seeing his reaction, Eri can't hold back and lets out a small laugh. Eri keeps laughing at his embarrassed reaction, and Ryota thinks to himself that this is exactly why he can't handle extroverted people. Suddenly, she slides something across the counter toward him. With a smile, Eri reveals the book he wanted so badly, Oppai Sui. She explains that when he called earlier, she set aside a copy especially for him. Completely stunned by her kindness, Ryota is left speechless. In his mind, he sees Miyama as a true angel for doing something so nice for him. Eri then asks what her thank you will be for having saved the book for him. Ryota immediately reacts by bowing deeply in an extreme gesture of gratitude. She, however, tells him that this isn't the kind of thank you she had in mind. That leaves Ryota completely confused and unsure of what to do. Eri explains that she saved the book for him purely out of customer service spirit. Then she proposes a deal. In return, he should buy her something. With a smile, she describes herself as a straightforward girl and makes her request that he treat her to something at the school cafeteria tomorrow. Ryota, shocked by her boldness, corrects his previous thought. He realizes that she is definitely not an angel, but rather a little devil. Casually, Eri asks what his name is. He replies that it's Itsumiya Ryota. With a mischievous smile and calling him by his first name, she confirms their deal. Then she says she'll be looking forward to lunch break the next day. Eri lets out a small giggle, leaving Ryota completely red-faced and confused. Suddenly, the manager calls her back to the register. Eri responds that she's coming and waves goodbye to Ryota with a cheerful smile. Ryota stays behind, silent and still in shock. He's going to have lunch with Eri Miyama, one of the queens of the school's social hierarchy. To him, no matter how you look at it, this situation is completely insane and unbelievable. After the change of seats in class, Hazumi's life became much more complicated.
He ended up surrounded by very popular girls. The other boys in the class were jealous, not understanding why that otaku, who only liked 2D things, was the one getting all the attention. Izumiya tried to focus on his book, a light novel, but suddenly something caught his attention. He looked at the girl right in front of him. Izumiya was surprised to realize who she was, Ichinose Yuria. He mentally called her gloomy. She said she had remembered something. Izumiya wondered what she meant by that. A popular girl, Airi, entered the classroom and greeted her friend. Ichinose Yuria winked at him in a charming way. Izumiya panicked completely. He thought that kind of gesture made it seem like they were secretly dating. At lunchtime, Ryota's situation became even more complicated. He ended up having lunch with Miyama. Ryota thanked her for the meal. Yuria thanked Ryota for paying for lunch, but he said it was no problem. He explained that it was his way of thanking her for helping him the day before. Yuria called his name and asked if he didn't also feel like everyone was staring at them. Meanwhile, other students watched them from a distance. She asked Ryota about the conversation he had with her that morning, commenting that people found it strange to see her talking to a boy. Ryota confirmed but seemed confused about what Yuria meant by her saying she had remembered something. He turned to her and asked what the meaning behind Yuria's words could be. Miyama then suggested a plan to help him. She offered to ask Yuria directly for him. Ryota said that if she did it for him, the discovery wouldn't have the same meaning. Miyama changed tactics and, with a mischievous smile, suggested a new plan. She offered to tell Ryota the secret place where Yuria usually spent her time so he could approach her directly. Ryota was shocked by the idea, and Miyama insisted, asking if he didn't really want to know what Yuria meant that morning. With a more serious expression, she explained that she wanted to be his friend and that, since they were all sitting together now, they should try to get along. For a moment, Ryota thought that having Miyama as a mediator might make things easier. However, he quickly changed his mind, thinking that path would be boring and no fun. He refused her help, admitting to himself that Miyama was a little devil. Despite his hesitation, Ryota decided to follow Miyama's lead and went to Yuria's secret hideout. The place was a game center, also known as an arcade, called Gamis. He entered thinking that since she was a gal, maybe he'd find her near the photo booths. He looked around and quickly realized she wasn't anywhere to be seen. Suddenly, a distinct clack-clack sound coming from a corner of the arcade caught his attention. He immediately recognized the well-done nails rapidly moving over the game controls. Finally, he looked at the legs and all the pieces clicked in his mind. It was the final confirmation for Ryota. In his mind, he repeated her name silently and in disbelief. Yuria Ichinose. Ryota observed Yuria more closely and realized she was struggling with a claw machine. To his even greater surprise, he saw the prize she so badly wanted, a figure of a Bishoujo anime character. He couldn't believe that a gal like her would be interested in such a figure. She turned and saw him, and both were shocked. She immediately grew suspicious, thinking he was trying to gather proof of her secret hobby to blackmail her later. She confronted him directly, asking if his intention was to expose her taste for figures and ruin her reputation at school. Ryota panicked at the accusation and vehemently denied it. He quickly made up a lie. He said that actually, he had also come to the arcade to try to win that exact same figure. Ryota's lie had an unexpected effect on Yuria.
Instead of suspicion, her expression changes to one of surprise and excitement, and she asks, "You too?" Ryota asks Yuria why she was trying to win the figure. Yuria looks away and stays silent. Ryota asks another question, wondering if her intention was actually to resell the figure. Angrily, she grabs him by the uniform and yells, demanding that he not compare her to that kind of despicable people. With a look of pure fury and passion, Yuria reveals her true reason. She explains that she was trying to win the figure precisely so she wouldn't have to pay the absurd prices charged by resellers. Ryota panics as he realizes the mistake he made. He understands that the word resell was the trigger that set off her rage. While Yuria continues yelling at him, Ryota has no idea how to calm the situation. He inserts money into the machine. With sudden calm and seriousness, he asks Yuria to let go of him, saying he needs to focus. Ryota takes control of the claw machine with the expression of a pro. In his thoughts, he reveals his own secret. He trained specifically to win Bishoujo figures in these machines, and knows it's no easy task. With Yuria watching him in silent surprise, Ryota begins his attempt. Even though he's nervous, he's focused, and he explains his philosophy to win. He says claw machines aren't beaten with force, but with a gentle touch. The claw descends and perfectly grabs the figure's box. She praises his skill, saying he's absolutely amazing and that what he did was spectacular. He hands her the figure she wanted so badly. Yuria accepts the figure, hesitating a bit, and asks Ryota if he's really sure about giving it to her. After all, he was the one who won it. Ryota humbly explains his reasoning. He says he only managed to win because she had already played so much and prepared the machine for him, and because of that, he insists the figure belongs to her. His words move her even more. Holding the figure, she asks him directly if he's going to make fun of her for liking this kind of thing. She admits that, from any perspective, it's weird for a high school girl like her to enjoy anime. He admits, yes, he was surprised that she liked an anime where breast milk shoots out. He looks at Yuria and tells her he sees no problem with someone proudly saying they love what they love. He shows her his phone with the case of one of his favorite light novels. He declares proudly that he's not ashamed of what he loves, and to him, that's what it means to be a true otaku. He says there's nothing wrong with hiding a hobby, but that if someone truly loves something, they shouldn't be the one to tear that passion down. Yuria listens in silence, but then Ryota's courage fades. He suddenly gets really embarrassed by his own speech, thinking he has no right to say those things. Completely flustered, he suggests to Yuria that maybe the two of them should just forget everything that happened that day. She says she doesn't want to. She confesses the reason is simple: because I'm an otaku too. Her direct confession catches Ryota off guard, and he stammers, shocked, not believing what he just heard. Yuria comments that he's been a closet otaku this whole time, but Ryota defends himself, saying he wasn't trying to hide it. Then, Yuria reveals the reason why she keeps her hobby a secret. She admits that even though she's an otaku, it's really hard for her to be open about it, especially in front of her popular friends Airi and Rui. Yuria continues, explaining the reason for her fear with a sad expression. She reveals that she's tired of losing close friends just because she likes anime.
A memory from the past shows her being excluded by other girls, while Ryota listens in silence. Yuria apologizes, perhaps for sharing too much, and confirms his name, Isamiya. With a desperate expression, she leans toward him and makes a very serious request. She begs him not to tell anyone that she's an otaku. With great emphasis, she specifies that under no circumstances should he reveal her secret to her friends, Airi and Rui. Flustered by her closeness, Ryota quickly reassures her. He promises that he has no intention of telling anyone her secret. After her relief, Ryota has an important realization. He realizes that if she's also an otaku, that means he no longer needs to hide his own interests from her. With a smile, she shows him the same light novel that Ryota loves.
She explains that the thing she remembered that morning was seeing him with that book. She asks for his contact on Lime, a messaging app, and declares that he will now be her partner for Otaku Talks. She says that if he doesn't agree, she'll tell everyone he was looking at her legs in a perverted way. Ryota realizes that she knows. Yuria says he'll keep her secret, and in return, she'll keep his. Yuria points at him with a confident, mischievous smile. She confirms the pact they made just now. She declares that from this moment on, this is the kind of relationship they have. Ryota's phone beeps, receiving Yuria's contact. In his mind, the situation is now clear and official. He just became friends with Yuria Ichinose. He reflects on how his social life has suddenly gotten much more complicated. Ryota thinks that this new friendship with Yuria is different from the relationship he already had with Miyama. The scene shows the two of them walking together. Later that night, Ryota is in his room, relaxing on his bed. He's barely able to believe that she actually is an otaku. Suddenly, his phone beeps with a new message. It's from Miyama Airi, asking if he found out anything about Yuria that morning. Upon reading the message, Ryota makes an important decision. He decides he's going to protect Ichinose-'s secret. She sends another message telling him to forget about it. She then calls in a favor for the information she gave him about Yuria, suggesting he pay her back with a drink. At the same time, he receives another message on his phone. It's from Yuria Ichinose, who, as thanks for the figure, invites him to go see a movie and says she'll pay. Ryota goes into a complete panic. He screams internally at the thought of going to the movies with Yuria. Ryota imagines his near future, which now feels like a dream. He thinks about drinking a frappe at Staba with Miyama, then going to the movies alone with Ichinose. The idea of having these kinds of outings with two popular girls leaves him completely overwhelmed. He can't believe something like this is happening to a gloomy, lonely guy like him. Back in his room, he looks at his calendar now filled with social plans. He realizes that this is what people call being a ryaju, someone who lives a fulfilling, real-world life. He concludes that this entire turn of events happened because of one simple thing. It was all thanks to the seating rearrangement in class. Ryota's mind focuses on the origin of this whole change, the seat change organized by Kuroki Rui. He begins to wonder if his new seat was intentional or just a coincidence. He can't understand why someone like him, a gloomy, unknown guy, would be placed in such a prominent spot. He even wonders if Rui might hold some kind of grudge against him. A memory from middle school comes to his mind, reminding him that even though they went to the same school, they never once spoke to each other. Ryota quickly dismisses his own theories.
He convinces himself that a popular girl like her would never notice someone as insignificant as him. In the end, he decides it was all just a simple coincidence. The scene shifts to another location. We see Rui Kuroki's house at night. Inside her room, Rui is looking at her phone. On the screen, there's an old photo of Ryota from their middle school days. She looks at the picture with a gentle, mischievous smile, full of secrets. The story continues the next morning at school. Ryota is exhausted and can barely keep his eyes open. The reason for his fatigue is a long conversation he had the night before. He stayed up late exchanging messages with Yuria Ichinose on the Lime app. He reflects on how her personality changes completely when the topic is her otaku interests. Rui Kuroki, the mysterious class rep, greets him with a smile and a good morning. She keeps the conversation going with small talk about the weather, commenting that it's raining. Caught off guard, Ryota can only agree. He wonders to himself if Kuroki had always been this talkative. Miyama and Yuria greet Rui as well. Rui asks if she felt lonely, and that's why she asked Miyama to come along. Flustered, Miyama denies it and says her umbrella broke, so they had to share one. Miyama silently wishes Yuria would just be more honest. Yuria gives a discreet glance in Ryota's direction.
He notices the look and immediately understands her message. He needs to make sure no one finds out what happened between them the day before. Miyama notices Yuria's expression and asks what's wrong, but Yuria quickly brushes it off, saying it's nothing. Then Yuria decides to leave the situation. She tells the group she'll go ahead and hurries off. Rui senses something strange is going on. Miyama turns to Rui and asks if something's wrong. Rui, however, says it's nothing and that they should also get going. The scene ends with a shot of Rui's face, making it clear that she wasn't fooled. Ryota can't get Rui's smile out of his head. He panics, wondering what that mischievous smile meant. He fears that she may have found out about his secret relationship with the two girls. His mind begins reviewing everything he knows about Kuroki Rui, which only makes him more nervous. Rui is a top student, with grades good enough to get her into medical school. On top of being an academic genius, she dominates in athletic competitions too. She's described as a Yamato Nadeshiko, the ideal of a perfect Japanese woman. Because of her status, the only people in class who can talk to her as equals are the other two most popular girls, Miyama and Yuria. His imagination runs wild, picturing the worst-case scenario. He imagines Rui interrogating him in a threatening way to protect her best friend's secrets. He convinces himself that her smile that morning wasn't friendly, but rather a way to probe for information. In the middle of his panic spiral, his phone buzzes with a new message. He sees it's from Ayuri Miyama. She invites him to have lunch in an empty classroom on the 3rd floor. She explains that Yuria and Rui are busy, so she's alone. Ryota accepts Miyama's invitation and meets her in the empty classroom to eat. As soon as they meet, Miyama gets straight to the point. She asks Ryota what he and Rui were talking about that morning. She says she's worried he might reveal their secret.
Miyama quickly clarifies that that's not what she meant. She explains that her curiosity is simply because she wants to know why Rui was in such a good mood that morning. Her question leaves Ryota confused. He had interpreted Rui's friendliness as a threat. Miyama starts explaining to Ryota why Rui's behavior was so surprising. She describes Rui as normally being very serious and expressionless when speaking to boys. However, she points out that when Rui talked to Ryota, her attitude was completely different. Miyama noticed that Rui seemed to be genuinely enjoying herself, something she had also observed on the day of the seat change. After putting all the pieces together, Miyama reaches a bombshell conclusion. With great excitement, she declares her theory. Rui totally likes Ryota. Miyama is completely convinced by her theory. She insists that must be the reason why Rui only relaxes and smiles when talking to Ryota. He tries to explain that they never even spoke before the seat swap. Miyama continues her investigation, asking if they didn't attend the same middle school. Then comes an even more excited new conclusion. Maybe Rui secretly fell in love with him back then. Miyama announces that she just had a great idea. The mischievous expression on her face is enough to give Ryota a terrible feeling about what's coming next. Later, Ryota is by the lockers, getting ready to go home. He's still thinking about the great idea Miyama mentioned at lunch, though she never revealed what it was. He notices something odd. It seems like his umbrella is missing. Suddenly, he hears a female voice behind him say, "You finally showed up." Turning around, Ryota is surprised to see that the person waiting for him is Rui Kuroki herself. She calls him by name and says she's been waiting for him. Rui offers him the umbrella. Confused, Ryota asks if that umbrella is really his. She explains that Miyama said she had a date and needed an umbrella, so Rui lent her own to her. Ryota realizes that Miyama is behind all of this. Rui continues, explaining that afterward,
Miyama used her as an excuse, saying Rui couldn't go home without her umbrella, manipulating the situation to bring the two of them together. Rui apologizes to Ryota for being dragged into such a messy plan. Ryota finally understands the whole situation, but a new question arises in his mind. He can't figure out how Rui knew which umbrella was his. As they begin walking out of the school, Rui suggests they go home together since they take the same route. Ryota, still processing everything, simply agrees. She looks at the umbrella and comments that he's had it since middle school. Ryota is baffled. He can't understand how she remembers such an old detail about him. As they walk together in the rain, Ryota is completely flustered. Rui, on the other hand, seems perfectly calm and at ease. With a smile, she politely says, "Excuse me for intruding." Continuing the conversation, Rui asks Ryota a direct and shocking question. With a sly smile, she asks if he got a girlfriend recently. Before he can answer, Rui continues her probing even more precisely. She speculates whether his girlfriend might be Yuria or Airi. He vehemently denies the idea, stammering that it's impossible for a socially awkward nobody like himself to be dating anyone. She points out his obvious panic, the way someone usually quiet suddenly started talking fast, and how his hands are shaking while holding the umbrella. To her, the conclusion is clear and immediate. Ryota, on the other hand, is both amazed and terrified by her deduction skills. He can't believe how easily she was able to read him.
Rui confronts Ryota directly about his lie. She reveals that a friend told her she saw him having lunch with Airi in the cafeteria the day before. "Why are you lying to me?" she asks. She gives him no room to escape and demands to know how he and Airi got so close. Ryota finally manages to come up with an explanation. He tells a half-truth, saying he was just thanking Miyama for helping him get something he really wanted. Rui continues to press, asking if he's sure there's nothing going on between them. Ryota quickly denies it. She confesses that his answer is a relief to her. Her reaction leaves Ryota even more confused. Rui begins to explain the reason behind her relief, revealing a vulnerable side of herself. She confesses to Ryota that she's always been a perfectionist, feeling pressured to be perfect in everything, both in academics and in sports. Ryota is confused by this sudden personal confession, not understanding where she's going with it. Then Rui reveals the main point. She was happy he didn't become Airi's boyfriend, because that would mean she had lost to her friend. She ends by saying once again how relieved she feels. Still trying to process Rui's shocking confession, Ryota asks what her words truly mean. Rui then prepares to give them the final answer, the origin of all her interest. She begins by recalling their time in middle school. Looking directly at him, Rui reveals her deepest secret. She tells him that in middle school, he was the only boy who never confessed to her. Isuli was shocked, his voice trembling, asking if he really was the only one. He wanted to know about the other boys, those who had already had girlfriends. Rui, calm and direct, gave a sharp response. Those boys weren't chosen because they were desirable. They were just second options, the cheap cut because she had rejected the ones she actually wanted. Love can be cruel like that. He never even looked at the meat from the beginning. That's what makes him different from the others. That's what separates him from the predators. Rui stepped closer with a confident smile, staring right at Isumiya. She said he liked her too, didn't he? He was just too shy to confess. Nervously, Isumiya tried to deny it, saying he didn't feel that way. She pressed him again, told him to admit it, told him to say he liked her. Isumiya took a step back. All he could say was, "That's why I..." She let out a soft laugh, saying he couldn't run away anymore. She smiled and declared that from that moment on, they would play a game. The rules were simple. She wouldn't leave that spot until Isumiya said, "I like you." He got nervous, trying to get out of the situation, said it was ridiculous and that he was going home. But she stepped even closer, wearing a sad expression. asked if he would really leave a girl alone in the rain like that, said he was cruel for doing so. Rui was very close to Izumiya, standing under the umbrella. She asked what he was going to do. She wanted to know if he would confess right then and there or leave her standing alone at the school gate. Izumiya was panicking. Even if it was Kuroki, a very popular girl, being forced to confess felt wrong. He tried to reason his way out. He said she wouldn't be happy hearing a confession that was forced. With a gentle smile and calm eyes, Rui gave her reply. She asked, "And what if I told you that I would be happy?" Rui looked at him with a blushing face and a sincere smile. She said she meant it. She continued, her voice soft but full of emotion. She said that since that day, she always... Suddenly, a voice interrupted the tense moment. Yuria called out to Rui, saying she had finally found her. Ryota was shocked to see her there and shouted her name, Ichinose. Yuria looked at the two of them standing together under the umbrella, her expression annoyed. She asked, why are they walking home together?
She explained that Irie had asked to borrow her umbrella, so she and Rui decided to walk home together. Yuria looked at him with a serious expression. She said she had told Rui to wait while she finished some tasks for the cultural festival committee. Then she asked why Rui was standing under Izumiya's umbrella. Ryota was confused. He thought something about this didn't add up. The story Kuroki told him earlier didn't match what Yuria was saying now. Yuria called Rui and said, "Let's go." With a smile, Rui agreed and replied, "Okay." The two girls walked off together. Ryota was left behind, crouching and confused. He wasn't sure what had just happened, but he felt like Kuroki's little game had been called off for now. With a sigh of relief, he silently thanked Ichinose. He figured it was time to go home too. Suddenly, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He looked at the message. It was from Ichinose Yuria. She apologized for acting cold and explained that it was because of Rui. She wrote, "Sorry about that, Izumiya." Ryota thought she didn't need to worry about it. Then his phone buzzed again with a different tone. It was a message from someone not on his friends list. He read the new message and his face turned pale with shock. The message was from Kuroki Rui. She said that since they'd gotten closer, she'd decided to add him as a friend. Then she asked him to keep what had happened between them a secret. She ended the message with a threat, saying that if he told anyone, who knows what might happen. But the next message was the most shocking of all. She wrote, "Oh, and Izumiya-kun, I'm going to make you fall in love with me." Ryota stared at the message, his face frozen in pure terror. It was the opposite of comforting. It was downright scary. So shocked, he nearly dropped his phone from his trembling hands. He let out a sigh of despair. He couldn't understand his situation. Why were three beautiful girls interested in an introverted otaku like him? And just like that, he found himself, unintentionally, keeping the secrets of three of the most popular girls in his class. He came to a terrible conclusion. His peaceful life was, without a doubt, completely ruined.